So I've printed off a picture of the Lego character that I'm going to make. So today we're going to do Spider-Man. Now, you'll see I've got some little Lego templates that I've made. So I just printed off a figure that was smaller and traced out the size of the head, the body and the legs. Now you'll see I've got another video with the basic Lego figure, so you might find that one easier to watch at first. So what we're going to do first is make the various parts of the body, and then we will let them set before painting on all the features. So I've got some modelling flour paste here that I've just dyed blue, and I'm just going to roll it only slightly. I still want it to be quite thick. Okay, so I've just got corn flour on mine, so just dust it off if you've got it on yours as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is his torso, legs and arms in blue. So I'm going to put the templates on there like so, and I'm just going to start by cutting around them. So we've got our basic body there, a nice simple shape, and also the legs, which we'll need to do a bit more work on now. I've just cut a piece of greaseproof paper just to put the body on while it dries, so that it's not sticking to my surface, and I can move it around easily then if I want to. So put my legs on here. I'm just going to hold the template next to my legs so I know whereabouts to put on my lines. So taking my knife, I'm just going to put this line up here on the top of the legs. So I'm just going to run that along there like that, so I haven't pressed in too deep. And then I'm going to put another line where the curve on the legs would be. So I'm going to put that about there. Now, if you want to get a curve on there, just using a modelling tool, just run it down that line that you've put in. And again on the top one. And just smooth it off with your finger. Okay, so it just gives it a little bit more shape. So what I'm going to do now is put a bit of an indentation here for the bottom where his feet would go. And then I'm just going to, with the other end of my modelling tool, just press this middle bit in. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing now. It looks to be taking the other bit out of shape at the moment. So what we're going to do is, once you've flattened that, just pressed it in a little bit. Just make sure the bottom bit of your legs is straight and that it's still to the right height. And then what we'll do is we'll just cut that extra bit off either side, so it's back to the original shape that we had it in. Okay. Now, the easier way, or the easiest position to have your Lego figures in, is to just have them stood straight up. So if that's the case, you just want to put a little slit in the centre, or just either side of the centre like that, and just run the knife in like that. Pull that centre bit out. Okay. It is sometimes tricky to get both legs the same width, so one of mine's ever so slightly a little bit thicker than the other one. Okay, so you'd leave them like that, or if you want them in a position, then you can bend them about a little bit. Now, if you do want to bend one forward, you might need to take a really tiny amount of icing from the joint there so that you can put it up like that. So I'm going to leave mine with one leg just going up just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just rest it on a piece of icing that I'm not using to keep it up in that position like that. Okay. Now, I haven't got a template for the arms. For the arms, we're just going to roll out some sausage shapes. Sorry, you'll be able to hear the plane going over. So they want to be reasonably slim, and you'll see from the picture that the arms come to just short of the body, so we're going to cut them about that length because we don't want them quite as long as the body. Okay, so they're only small. Just roll the other one. You'll see my hands are covered in dye from dyeing it blue and red earlier. So I'm going to cut that as well. One of mine's a little bit thicker than the other, so I'm just going to roll it out just a tiny bit more. I've made it a bit longer now, so I'll cut some more off the bottom like that. Now, they tend to have a little bit of a crease for where their elbow is in the Lego figure's arms like that. So I'm just going to lightly indent in with my knife. Now it's not halfway up, it's a little bit lower than halfway down on the arm where you do that. And again, you can have your arms positioned straight down next to the body, or if you want, you can have them up at different angles. So I might put one of mine up at an angle. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water at the top of the arm and attach it to the top of the body. So I'm going to put mine so that he's got his arm up in the air. Now again, if you need to support it, if it's not sticking, just put a bit of icing underneath to support it where you want it to be. And then the other arm, stick down again in the position you want it to go in. So I'm just going to have that one down by his side like that. So I'm going to leave those bits to dry before adding the patterning onto those. So we'll do the head next. So we're going to need a bit of red. Again, this is the flour and modelling paste. You can use the normal fondant, but I sometimes find it easier to do it with this. It's easier to shape smaller pieces. So I'm going to start with a ball, and I'm just going to hold it against my template to see if it's roughly the right size for what I need. So when you've got your ball, hold it between your two fingers and move it like that to get the Lego man's head shape. Like that. Okay. I'm just going to hold it over my template. Now it looks roughly the same size as my template, so I'm just going to hold it against the body now to see what I think. Against the body now. Even though I have got templates, sometimes I do think they look like they need a bit more adding, so I'm just going to add a tiny bit more to it. I might have made it too big this time, but it is trial and error sometimes with it. The more you do things, the more you get used to it and the quicker they will get. Okay, so we've done that again. So I'm going to hold that above the body. Now with the head, they'll have a neck and then a little round bit at the top of the head, which I'm just going to get some cutters for. So I'm going to roll this, not really thin, and I'm going to put my little round cutter in. Now you'll see the neck is wider than the circular bit that's on the top of the head, so what I'm going to do is just squash that down just a little bit for the neck. And you can either stick it on the body or you can stick it on the head, so I'm going to stick it on the head, I think. So obviously that is now the bottom of my head. I'm going to turn it over, just put a dab of water on the top of the head. And I'm going to do another circle, which I'm literally just going to put on the top of the head like that. So that's a bit more Lego man shaped now. So for this next bit, we're going to make some hands. So I'm just going to take a small ball, squash it down a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is flatten it at either side so it becomes sort of a bit more oval shaped, and then I'm just going to curl it like that. Now I'm not sure I've done this one quite big enough, so I'm going to add a little bit more to it. Now this is the one thing I didn't make a template for the hands, as I was finding it too difficult to. So it is a case of trialing it each time for size. Okay, so there's one little hand that I've just curled around like that, and you'll need to leave that to dry. So then we need to make another one in the same way, starting with a circle, squashing it down into a bit of an oval. If you've got an oval shape cutter, you might even just want to try using the oval shape cutter to start with, and then curling it round. And just put it next to your other one to make sure that they are similar in size to each other. Now you might find if you don't think they're quite round enough on the inside, stick something round like the centre of your paintbrush in there, so that you're getting a nice round bit in the centre, like that. So I'll do that again on this one. Now they are difficult to keep in shape at the hands until they've dried. So I'm going to leave those now to dry. Then when they've dried, we'll put on the features. So I've given him now a few hours to set a little bit, so he's still soft in the middle but quite hard on the outside. And what I want to do now is add on his head, his body, stick everything together, and then put his detailing on and stick his hands on. Now you can just wet everything and leave it to dry like that to stick it together, or you can put supports throughout if you prefer. So what we're going to do first is roll some icing nice and thin. Now I hope you can see what I'm doing, because I know that I have zoomed in, so you might not be able to see everything on my board. So I've rolled some icing, and I'm just going to cut it to a similar size to his outfit. So I'm just putting that on top so I can tell size wise. So what I'm going to do now is just put a little bit of water on his body where the red bit would go, so not everywhere. So just taking your picture, have a look at where it would go. So it'll go up here, down here, I don't know if you can see this very well, and he'll have a little line that goes across there. So I'm going to put that on his front. Now I'm hoping it will only stick where I've put the water, and then we should be able to cut the rest off. So I'm going to cut this top bit off. This is where it gets a little bit fiddly. And I'm going to cut the bottom bits off but at an ever so slight angle. And again, I'm going to cut in a little bit here on either side. And then you're going to come across, take a little triangle out the side of his body like that. Now if it's a little bit longer than the body, just cut any extra bits off at the sides. So I'm going to cut another triangle out there, like so. Just neaten it off if you've got any rough edges. Cutting any bits that overlap, I'll go all the edges off. Make sure it's a straight edge across the top. And then I'm just going to try and gently curve that line just a little bit so it's not too much of a straight edge. I'm just going to press that down gently with my finger, like so. Now we're gonna put his eyes on. So quite large eyes, but just taking a really small amount of white. I'm gonna roll it out. Nice and thin. And I'm going to take in a round cutter, cut a little circle of white out. Just got jaggedy at the edges, so just push those down. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is just slice a tiny bit off the edge of that, like so. So we're going to do that again. And I'm going to take a tiny edge off like that. Now decide which you want the front of his face to be. Just put 2 tiny dabs of water on where we're going to stick his eyes, and these can get a little bit fiddly, so we're just going to put these on his face first. My hands are probably in the way of you seeing properly, so I do apologise. So I'm going to put those roughly in place like that. I'm just going to move it around a little bit with my brush. And I'm just going to squash it a tiny bit up in the corner to stretch it into the shape that I'm after. So when we've done that, you're going to stick that to his body. Now you can just use water to stick it on there, or you can put a cocktail stick or a piece of spaghetti or something through the centre. So I'm going to try putting this through the centre of the body, and you will need to try and get it central so that it comes out where the centre at the top where his head will go, like so. And I'm just going to put a bit of water on the bottom of his head. Just make sure your cocktail stick doesn't go further up than his head would, and then push into the centre like that. Okay, so now we've got his head attached. Now you don't have to put this through, you can just leave it all flat to dry. And then you've got the same for the legs. I'm going to put a bit of water on them. Now if you can put it at an angle, you'll get it to run through one leg. Now as it stands at the moment, if I put this cocktail stick through, it's going to stick out the bottom, which I don't want to do. So what I'm going to do is just, in fact I was going to snap it, but we'll cut it. So we've only got a small amount that's going to go into the legs. Now if you find it doesn't want to go in straight away, work out whereabouts it's going to go, and then with the pointy end of one just push in, and then that one should then go in the hole that you've made like that. There you go. So it's starting to come together just a little bit more now. We've still got to attach his hands and put some detailing on. So the next bit is the fiddly bit of painting him. And I'm going to use a fine brush, and I'm just going to use my black food colouring. Now it is quite fiddly, and what I'm going to do to start with is the outside of his eyes. So I'm going to start with the top bit, so I'm going to move him around while he's on the paper. It is very difficult to do the painting on these. Just trying not to get my head in the way of the camera for you while I'm doing this. So if you put too much black on, like what I've just done there, just rinse the colour off your brush, drying your brush off a little bit, and then just try, if you can, wipe it off a little bit like that. So you've got his eyes done. Then you're going to paint on his webs. So I'm going to start with the head again. I'm going to turn my picture the way that I'm doing it, to just find that a little bit easier. And I'm going to put his 3 lines up his face. Now, if you find it easier to use a pen rather than a paintbrush, then do that. And then we're going to do the connecting lines. But you'll see that it's starting to come to shape a little bit more now, and you can start to tell who it is that we're doing. Okay, so I think I'm about done with his face. So next we'll move on to the body, and we'll add his hands last. So we've done the painting on him. Next we just need to add his hands. So I've just got a bit more of the red that I'd used before. My hands are still dyed blue, unfortunately. I'm going to take his hands and we're going to stick them using a bit of water. So I'm going to put a tiny bit of water on the back of each hand. And then I'm also going to put a tiny bit at the end of each arm. And you might have to balance these for them to stay on, so I might find that I'll struggle to keep it on this one that's in the air. If you find in certain positions that it is really difficult to get them to stay, just try them with their arms straight down by the sides and see if that makes it easier for you. So I've rolled 2 small bits of fondant, so I'm going to stick one on the end of there like that. And I'm going to stick the other one on the end of there. Again, it's really fiddly, these little bits. And then taking the hands, I'm just going to stick these on. Now his hands might be a tiny bit too big. So you're just going to push them on like that. That one might drop off, we'll see. And I'll push this one on that. Just want to make sure it's going on properly. There we go, like that. Okay, so Spiderman is now done. I know he's not identical, but it's still pretty similar to the one in the picture. So I'm going to let him dry, and then I'm going to stick him on one of my cakes. Now, you can stand them up, stick them on the cakes, or if you find that they're toppling, again, what I would do is stick a cocktail stick just through one of the feet, and then you can attach that in the cake. Just make sure that people know that they aren't edible, so that no children are taking a bite and getting a cocktail stick stuck in the mouth. Right, well, thank you for watching. Please do subscribe to my channel, and please do visit my Facebook page, where you'll see all the pictures of the cakes and things that I do with the Lego figures.